Welcome to the Shorten Anime channel. Today we'll dive into the latest episode of The Great Ruler. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. The Great Ruler, Season 1, Episode 4, Liu Yang. Mu Chen glanced at the boy who crossed his arms. He did not seem surprised and only calmly said, "You've watched the show for half a day now, so you finally couldn't resist coming out?" Mu Yuan, Shui Dong, and Xiao Kun looked at Liu Yang. They were overjoyed and immediately shouted, "Brother Liu." When they turned their gaze at Mu Chen again, it had become a little bit more arrogant and aggressive. Mu Chen's reputation was not weak within the Northern Spiritual Academy Earth class. Furthermore, he had defeated the three of them together just a while ago. However, there was still a bit of a gap between the person who was number one in the Earth class. With Liu Yang backing them up, they naturally did not feel afraid of Mu Chen. Liu Yang stared at the humiliated trio. He frowned and gave a cold stare at Mu Chen. "Mu Chen, you probably have to give an explanation to the West Branch about this matter today?" "An explanation?" Mu Chen stared at the boy, who had the largest reputation in the West Branch Earth class, and smiled. "They harmed the students from the East Branch for no reason. From what I see, you should be the one that gives an explanation to us." The surrounding students secretly grinned as they noticed the two of them confronting each other. These two individuals were probably the most outstanding ones within the Northern Spiritual Academy Earth class. They originally planned on deciding the victor tomorrow. Nobody expected that they would face off each other today. Liu Yang narrowed his eyes slightly. A cold chill appeared in his eyes. Nobody would dare to be so rude to him within the Northern Spiritual Academy Earth class. Although he had heard stories about Mu Chen, he is still the number one person among the Northern Spiritual Academy Earth class. "You're still so arrogant." Liu Yang revealed a mocking smile. He stared at Mu Chen. "I'm really curious. For a person who obtained the Spiritual Roads qualification by luck and was kicked out forcibly, where did this arrogant spirit of yours come from?" Anger appeared in Su Ling and the others' eyes as they heard these harsh words. However, they knew that Liu Yang wasn't someone that they could defeat. They could only hold in their hatred and gritted their teeth. "You will know whether it is luck when you test it out." Compared to their anger, Mu Chen only gently smiled as he spoke. Liu Yang's pupils shrank. It was evident that he did not think that Mu Chen would dare speak to him like this. His voice gradually became colder. "I originally planned on fighting against you during the competition between the two branches tomorrow. However, it seems that you are impervious to the situation you're in. I will take care of you now, so I don't have to waste time tomorrow." After saying this, Liu Yang took a step forward. The spiritual energy that arose was many times stronger than Mu Yuan in terms of density. Seeing Liu Yang's imposing manner, Su Ling and the others were surprised. That Liu Yang actually dared to attack now? They looked at Mu Chen worriedly, yet they were only able to see a similarly aged, innocent face without the slightest fear. The black eyes reflected off dark light that people could not see through. Seeing Mu Chen's calm appearance, Su Ling and the others' concerns faded a bit. Although Liu Yang was the number one individual of the Northern Spiritual Academy Earth class, Mu Chen was not someone that weak as well. It would not be easy for him to take care of Brother Mu. "You really are pushing your luck too much." Mu Chen shook his head and curled his lips. The brilliant smile on the innocent face gradually became cold. On his palm, a dark black spiritual energy began to circulate around his fingertips. The atmosphere between the two of them became tense. Many students could not help but widen their eyes. The two individuals in front of them were the strongest within the Northern Spiritual Academy Earth class. They too were curious about who was stronger. "Stop!" Just when they were about to fight, a cry came out from a distance. Afterwards, the sound of the wind breaking rang out, and a burly figure appeared in between the two of them. "Teacher Mo!" When the students saw the person that arrived, they were suddenly surprised and hurried to let out their greetings. The middle-aged man that was referred to as Teacher Mo had a determined expression. Within his body, a striking amount of spiritual energy fluctuations were looming. It caused the nearby students to feel a little bit of pressure, and when they noticed him, even the arrogant Liu Yang straightened up a bit. The person in front of him is a genuine spirit stage powerhouse. Even within the Northern Spiritual Academy and Northern Spiritual Realm, he could be considered as a first-class individual. Naturally, he did not dare to offend him. "If you want to fight within the academy, you can do so at the Martial Stadium. Do you want to be punished for disgracing others outside?" Teacher Mo looked around and said in a stern voice, "Oh, what is Teacher Mo saying? We were just doing an exchange." Liu Yang smiled. He knew that he would not be able to take any actions today. He looked at Mu Chen and extended a finger towards him. He gave a faint nod and said, "I'll be waiting for you at the competition between the two branches tomorrow." After he said that, Liu Yang turned around and brought the people away with him. However, you could hear a faint murmur. "He's only just a person who was kicked out of the spiritual road halfway?" Su Ling and the others heard the deliberate murmur from Liu Yang. Their face turned pale and they said as they gritted their teeth, "Brother Mu, isn't he being too arrogant? At least you were able to qualify for the spiritual road. Who the fuck does he think he is?" Mu Chen looked at the angry Su Ling. He could not help but let out a smile as he patted his shoulder. He said, "Why are you getting so angry? If a dog bites you, do you have to bite him back? Even so, it doesn't feel good at all." "True, it feels pretty terrible." Mu Chen chuckled and a coldness appeared on the boy's innocent face. "Although I won't bite him, but I enjoy beating them to death with a stick. I will beat him up so that he will not dare to make such noise again. That boy from the Liu family is truly shameful, like his father." Teacher Mo stared at the direction where Liu Yang departed to. He frowned as if he was slightly dissatisfied. He then turned to Mu Chen and let out a smile and said, "Well said, that suits my taste as well." However, it was said that Liu Yang is also at the spiritual movement stage initial phase currently. He also possesses the human-level spiritual pulse, so his strength is comparable to a spiritual movement stage middle phase. "Are you certain that you would defeat him at the competition between the two branches tomorrow?" "Teacher Mo, please rest assured, I will not disgrace you." Mu Chen smiled. Teacher Mo managed the East Branch. If the East Branch lost too poorly at the competition, he would lose some face. "We're going to head back first, Teacher Mo." Teacher Mo stared at Mu Chen, who was leaving together with Su Ling and the others, and waved his hand. He also smacked his lips. That boy is still quite young, yet there is something that could not be seen by others within him. You could not see the slightest bit of arrogance within the boy, but you are able to vaguely feel the sharpness hidden within his gentleness. That boy. He is indeed someone that can overwhelm the individuals from the spiritual road. If he was to successfully complete the spiritual road's trial, he would probably be like hotcakes to the 5 great academies. How would he still be here? Teacher Mo sighed. He was actually looking forward to the competition between the two branches tomorrow. It was said that the guy from the Liu family had made sufficient preparations. Who knows who would be the one to have the final laugh at the competition to determine the number 1 of the Earth class? The color of the night became darker. Within his room, Mu Chen quietly sat in a cross-legged position. His hands formed a seal. It was obvious that he had entered the state of cultivation. Near his body, the spiritual aura within the world fluctuated. Then they followed his breath and entered his body. As more and more of the spiritual aura entered Mu Chen's body, a faint, dark black light flashed on the surface of his body. Within his auracea, the dark black spiritual energy flowed. The density of it was many times stronger than what he had first started to train. It was evident that Mu Chen had placed quite the effort in cultivating it during this period of time. A trace of the spiritual energy circulated through the cultivation route of the great pagoda art. In the end, it turned into a dark black spiritual energy and entered his auracea. It caused a vigorous feeling as it became more intense. Currently, Mu Chen had gradually become skilled in the great pagoda art, but he has not been able to reach the foundation level yet. However, he could faintly feel that step would not be very far away. Mu Chen did not become rash or impatient. He quietly exerted restraint on the spiritual energy that was being infused to his auracea. When the final traces of the spiritual energy entered his auracea, he could feel a tremble within it. The dark black spiritual energy within his auracea surged. It actually swelled up at an alarming rate, and strength began to flow through his limbs. Mu Chen was a little bit startled by the change within his auracea. He could not help but chuckle loudly. It really was unexpected that he actually broke through at this moment. The following day, when the hot sunlight showered down onto the Northern Spiritual City, gradual signs of hot-headedness appeared within the Northern Spiritual Academy. The Northern Spiritual Academy is divided into East and West branches. There is considerable competition between the two branches. However, it must be mentioned that there will only be growth when there is competition. This is why the Northern Spiritual Academy had produced many outstanding students during the past 2 years. Among the competition between the two branches, the Academy competition, held once every couple of months, was the most fiery and fierce. The rankings of many individuals within the academy would be decided during the academy competition. A youth will ultimately seek to prevail over others. In addition, who wouldn't want to show off in front of the many beautiful female seniors and juniors? Because of this, many students would put in a lot of effort to obtain decent results at the academy competition. At the west area of the Northern Spiritual Academy, there was a vast arena-like space. Many rings for martial competition were distributed through it. Near the rings, there were many stone staircases that acted as seats. Right now, these seats were all completely filled with a sea of humans. All kinds of sounds, such as conversation and whispers, gathered together. Moreover, it was mixed with a tinkling sound of laughter from the young girls, and it filled the atmosphere with a youthful vigor. Within the large stadium, there were many people. However, it was clearly divided into two sections. That is the West Branch and the East Branch students. Because of the competitive relationship they shared, the two sides would occasionally provoke each other, making the atmosphere particularly lively. We, the East Branch, only occupied 4 seats out of the top 10 within the Earth class. Moreover, the top 3 were all occupied by the West Branch. I really don't know if there will be any changes after this academy competition. We, the East Branch, also have a number of powerful individuals. Liu Feng and Tan Qingshan are rumored to soon reach the spiritual movement stage. If they succeeded, then it would be possible for them to reach the top 5. At the seats of the East Branch, a few students talked to each other. On the side, Su Ling heard the conversation and pouted his lips. He said, "You're not even aware of the main point of the academy competition. It doesn't matter how many seats the East Branch is behind. As long as Brother Mu obtains first place, the West Branch would not dare to bark at us." The East Branch students looked at each other and immediately sighed. Although what he said was correct, Mu Chen would still need to defeat Liu Yang in order to become number 1 of the Earth class. It was rumored that he possesses a human-level spiritual pulse. Brother Mu, this time we, the East Branch, are all counting on you. Su Ling grinned at the boy in front of him as he spoke. Mu Chen only smiled, but his eyes remained at the stadium. Although it had not officially begun, there were already a few students beginning to fight in the ring. Just when Mu Chen stared at the stadium, a ruckus sounded out from behind him. Then a fragrance came over as a graceful and slender figure appeared by his side. A sweet voice appeared. "Oi!" Mu Chen tilted his head to stare at Tang Qianer, who appeared beside him. The latter wore a jaded green outfit. Her bouncing black ponytail and extremely pretty face attracted many fervent stares over from the surroundings. Tang Qianer was a student from the East Branch Heaven class, and she was extremely beautiful. She had an amazing personality as well. Thus, so there was no shame for her to be considered as one of the flowers within the East Branch. No matter where she goes, she would naturally attract a variety of envious eyes. "Why did you come?" Due to Tang Qianer appearing here, Mu Chen was a little surprised. This should be the period when the Heaven class students are training, right? "I came here to cheer for you." Tang Qianer smiled. She joked around and said, "And in case you were beaten down completely, I can still carry you back." "Why, thank you." Mu Chen shook his head sourly. "Hey, will you be fine? You had a conflict with Liu Yang yesterday, so he probably made up his mind to cause trouble for you today." Concern filled Tang Qianer's eyes. Although teasing is just teasing, she also understood the importance of today's events. Otherwise, she would not throw aside her cultivation course and run over here. "I'll do my best." Mu Chen smiled. Just when he started to speak, his expression suddenly changed. He raised his head up to stare at the other side. In the center of the West Branch's seats, a cold gaze stared directly at him. It was Liu Yang. Others such as Mu Yuan and Shui Dong gathered near Liu Yang's side. At this moment, they were all sending out challenging sneers over to this side. Mu Chen and Liu Yang exchanged gazes from afar. At the place where the gazes intersect, sparks seemed to flash over there. The two of them were both well-known individuals within the two branches, and many people knew what the main show was for today. This is why their confronting gazes made them grin. It seems like the today's show would not escape them. Liu Yang stared at Mu Chen. Then his attention turned to Tang Qianer, who was beside him. He could not help but grit his teeth. When he looked at Mu Chen again, the gaze turned colder again. How troubling. Mu Chen was able to discover all these subtle changes. He then looked at Tang Qianer as he spoke. Everybody in the Northern Spiritual Academy knew that Liu Yang liked Tang Qianer. However, he had never gotten a good look from her. Aside from the grudge held between their fathers, Mu Chen would sometimes think that Liu Yang was against him so often because of the jealousy that Tang Qianer was close to him. "If you dislike me giving you trouble, then I'll leave," Tang Qianer said with a straight face. Mu Chen could not resist laughing. His black eyes stared at Tang Qianer. The boy's bright eyes made the girl blush slightly, but as a stubborn person, she still managed to stare directly at Mu Chen. "If it's him, he shouldn't be considered trouble," Mu Chen said with a smile. You just know how to boast. Say that after you won." Tang Qianer pouted her lips and she glanced at the stadium with her beautiful eyes. Her pretty face suddenly changed and she whispered, "That guy actually came as well." Mu Chen's line of sight followed hers over. His expression was also startled for a moment. Not only him, the entire East Branch seats instantly became a little quieter. Their gaze landed at the West Branch seats. There were a couple individuals at the age of 17 to 18. They were older than the other Heaven class students by a bit. At this moment, these individuals were all leaning on the rail and lazily stared at the ring within the stadium and would occasionally crack jokes. It was obvious that their attention was not on the stadium. At the center of those individuals, there were two figures that stood out the most, a boy and a girl. The girl had a bright red dress and her peach-like eyes were extremely attractive. It was Hong Ling from the West Branch. The other figure was a person dressed up in white. He had a tall stature and a handsome appearance. At this moment, he vaguely glanced through the West Branch area. The areas that he glanced upon instantly became quiet. It was evident that their momentum was oppressed. It's actually Liu Mubai. I didn't think that he would come as well. Su Ling gulped and said with a dry voice, "If they were facing Liu Yang, they would still be able to have a bit of fighting spirit within their heart. However, in front of Liu Mubai, they were not able to produce the slightest bit of courage, because Liu Mubai is the true #1 within the Northern Spiritual Academy. Ever since he entered the Northern Spiritual Academy, nobody was ever able to shake his #1 position." Mu Chen's gaze stared at the dazzling figure in white. His black eyes exchanged gazes with him. Even from a distance, it still seems that there was an oppression enveloping them. The four eyes exchanged gazes. However, within Mu Chen's eyes, the fear that the other students have did not appear. This calm exchange of gazes made the figure in white a little surprised, and he frowned. "Oh, that boy has quite the charisma." Beside Liu Mubai, the seniors from the West Branch actually noticed that Mu Chen was not afraid of Liu Mubai. Hong Ling's eyes also stared at Mu Chen when he exchanged gazes with Liu Mubai. The boy's face seemed to be slightly immature, but it made others feel calm. It felt that even the genuine #1 of the Northern Spiritual Academy was not able to impact him. She could not help but become entranced. The timid boy that had followed her back then really changed a lot. "Big brother!" A sound came over from nearby. Liu Yang stared happily over to this side. Liu Mubai gave a nod towards Liu Yang. Then his hands clenched onto the railing. He did not say anything, but the atmosphere at the East Branch shrank a bit. On the other hand, the West Branch's momentum expanded by taking advantage of this. It was evident that Liu Mubai purposely came over to subdue their momentum. With his position in the Northern Spiritual Academy, even the East Branch Heaven class seniors would not dare to confront him. And just when Liu Mubai's imposing manner oppressed the audience, a crisp bell sound rang out suddenly. This made many students recover their focus. The academy competition was finally about to begin. The crisp sound of the bell rang out through the skies. Beneath it, the lively atmosphere also reached its peak. Directly at the north of the stadium, three figures were sitting side by side. The person at the left was Teacher Mo that appeared yesterday. The person at the right was a middle-aged man with a skinny face. His face was tense and his eyes were slightly sunken. He seemed to be quite strict. Oh, the academy competition this time seemed to be livelier than ever. In the main seat between the two individuals was a white-haired old man. He smiled as he stared at the fiery atmosphere below and laughed. The situation was mostly clear for the past academy competitions, but this one is somewhat difficult to predict, Teacher Mo said with a smile. Why is it difficult to predict? Liu Yang is currently at the spiritual movement stage initial phase. Coupled with his human-level spiritual pulse, he would probably be ranked rather high up, even within the Heaven class. Although that Mu Chen is pretty good, there is still a bit of a difference between him and Liu Yang. The stern middle-aged man seated at the right curled his lips. He was the highest level instructor for the West Branch. He naturally wanted the West Branch students to get the best results. Teacher Shi, it is not wise to look down on a person who qualified for the spiritual road, Teacher Mo muttered. Unfortunately, That is only said for the ones that successfully pass through the trial within the spiritual road. The stern, middle-aged man shook his head as he spoke. The white-haired old man heard the dispute between the two of them and smiled. Apparently, he had long been accustomed to it. His muddle eyes looked at the seat within the East Branch and stopped at a boy with a thin body. He said, "It's a pity. Our northern spiritual realm haven't had a person who qualified for the spiritual road for over 10 years. This Mu Chen obtained the qualifications, yet he was kicked out halfway. He never experienced the final stage of the spiritual road, so his one-year trial within the spiritual road was considered in vain. This even wasted 1 year's time of training for him." Teacher Mo nodded regretfully. They weren't able to cultivate spiritual energy within the spiritual road. However, they were able to obtain spiritual energy empowerment if they successfully passed through the final stage of the trial. If they were extremely talented individuals, it wasn't impossible for them to advance to the spiritual rotation stage or even the spirit stage within one night. Originally, Mu Chen would have become the strongest individual within the younger generation in Northern Spiritual Realm if he passed through the trial. The space for the 5 great academies would also be properly delivered to his hand, and nobody would be able to compete against him for the qualifications. At that time, even a person like Liu Mubai could only be below him. However, who would have expected this unforeseeable event of being kicked out halfway? Mu Chen failed to obtain the most valuable spiritual energy empowerment from the spiritual road and was kicked out halfway. Because of this, he had wasted an entire year of time to cultivate spiritual energy. Principal Xiao, what on earth did Mu Chen do in the spiritual road? Why would he be kicked out halfway through? I know that boy's talents, his disposition is also excellent. He would never have been kicked out due to poor results. Teacher Mo frowned. He could not help but ask. He only knew that Mu Chen caused some sort of commotion within the spiritual road, but he was not aware of the details. When he heard this question, the stern middle-aged man also looked at the principal of the Northern Spiritual Academy. It was obvious that he was also curious about it. On the other hand, Principal Xiao gently stroked his beard and gave a bitter smile when he heard this question. He said, "I'm not too sure about it either, but I heard that the commotion that he caused in the spiritual road was not small. It even startled the higher-ups of the 5 Great Academy." Teacher Mo and the stern middle-aged man were both stunned. Their eyes had suspicion within them. They never imagined that Mu Chen caused an event that would startle the entire world. Well, let's not talk about this now. The bell has rung already. It is time to announce that the Academy competition has started. It was obvious that Principal Xiao did not want to say any more about it, and immediately waved his hand as he spoke. Teacher Mo nodded after he heard him speak. He stood up and glanced at the entire place. A deep, forceful voice echoed within every student's ears. "It is time now. The Academy competition has started. Remember, you are not allowed to kill during the duel between the 2 branches. You should all know the rules already. The ones that step onto the ring have an opportunity to challenge their opponents. However, you only have one chance, so you should know your limits and pick a suitable opponent." "Yes!" Within the venue, the dense pack of human respectfully replied, "Since it's like this..." Teacher Mo nodded and waved his hand. "Let it begin." Right after his hand was lowered, another loud bell sound rang out. It almost spread through the entire Northern Spiritual Academy. "Liu Xiong, hurry and come down here. I've disliked you for a long time. Chen Tong, you should also come out as well. This time, I'll pay you back from last time." Mu Chen stared at the messy scene within the venue. He could not help but smile. However, the majority of these duels were rather ordinary, so he did not care too much about it. He would only occasionally look in the direction of the West Branch's Liu Yang. Liu Yang, too, was staring coldly at him. By now, everybody in the Northern Spiritual Academy knew that Liu Yang had mentioned about selecting Mu Chen as his opponent during the Academy competition. Thus, nobody in the West Branch dared to challenge him first. Of course, with Mu Chen's strength, the West Branch students also knew that the only one who was qualified to be his opponent was Liu Yang. They were quite looking forward to the duel between the 2 most excellent students from the East and West Branch Earth class. Mu Chen did not care about the cold stare that Liu Yang gave towards him. He would occasionally talk softly with Tang Chenner, who was beside him. However, this action only caused Liu Yang to grit his teeth even more. The duels within the stadium were quite lively. However, the ones that attracted the most interest were the students ranked rather high up within the Earth class, because only those duels would be able to change the rankings. "That's our East Branch's Tan Qingshan." Sure enough, he took action. Su Ling, who was beside him, suddenly let out an excited shout. Muchen's gaze also followed it over and looked. Not far away from them, a boy in black clothes stood up and walked towards a ring. The boy looked quite skinny, and his face looked slightly pale. However, he pursed his lips tightly to show his determination. He did not speak or smile. It was as if he didn't hear the sounds from his surroundings. Tan Qingshan. Muchen stared at the boy in black clothes and was slightly startled. He was somewhat familiar with him. Tang Qingshan was considered to be the strongest person within the East Branch Earth class before he came to the Northern Spiritual Academy. Even now, he would be able to reach the top 5 among the Earth class students. Tan Qingshan also noticed Muchen's gaze. His body paused for a moment, and he raised his head to glance at him. A faint smile appeared on his silent and unsmiling face. Good luck. Muchen gave a smile to him. Although he was not particularly close to him, they were still East Branch students, and so he did not dislike Tan Qingshan. Tan Qingshan nodded. Then he jumped onto a ring. Suddenly, many eyes shot straight towards him. Within the East Branch, Tan Qingshan had quite a bit of reputation. I wonder who he is going to challenge. A few people whispered, and their eyes were filled with curiosity. There probably aren't many individuals within the West Branch that Tan Qingshan would regard as an opponent, right? Liu Yang. Under the many gazes, Tan Qingshan's gaze stared directly at a figure in front of the West Branch. His quiet voice caused a large uproar. He actually wants to challenge Liu Yang? Many students looked at each other, although Tan Qingshan was considered to be someone ranked high up within the Earth class. But there was still a large gap between him and Liu Yang. Nobody even imagined that he would take the initiative to challenge him. Within the West Branch's seats, Liu Yang was also startled for a moment. His eyes soon became depressed. Currently, Muchen hasn't been challenged by anyone, yet he was already challenged. Wouldn't that make others feel that Liu Yang's intimidation was weaker than Muchen? Conceited guy. Liu Yang stood up. That gloomy atmosphere caused the West Branch students nearby to shudder. It was obvious that Liu Yang was quite terrifying at this moment. Liu Yang jumped straight into the ring. He stared at Tan Qingshan. Then he looked at Muchen. He said with an expressionless appearance, "Did you find someone to test me out first?" When his voice dropped, he did not wait for Muchen's response and stared down at Tan Qingshan. The smile he gave was a bit ghastly. Ignorant trash. Do you still think that you're the #1 person within the East Branch Earth class? Tan Qingshan stared at Liu Yang. His eyes became a lot more serious. He was once the strongest student within the East Branch Earth class. Although that title was transferred to Muchen later, his prideful self continued to work hard and train. The relationship he shared with Muchen was more like a competitive relationship. After all, they were both East Branch students, so he would not cause trouble for Muchen. However, if he was able to defeat Liu Yang here, he should be able to retrieve back his first place. Tan Qingshan grasped his palms tightly. A deep yellow spiritual energy surged throughout his body and finally wrapped around his arms. A fierce, imposing manner slowly emitted out from his body. This spiritual energy... Suling and the others were surprised as they stared at the spiritual energy above Tan Qingshan's arms. He also advanced to the spiritual movement stage. Spiritual movement stage? That wraps up the content for today's episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the next episode. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.